This video is going to be for anyone who's feeling burnt out, whether right now or maybe you felt burnt out not too long ago, but maybe you're afraid that, hey, I'm going to get burnt out if I do the same actions and go in a certain path. So in this video, I'll be sharing the multiple times I've already been burnt out in my life. I'm actually burnt out right now as I'm speaking, and how to navigate said burnout. So burnout, if anyone doesn't know, if you came this far, it's basically just spending more energy than what you have on a continual basis. And basically in the longer term, if you spend more than what you have and there's no more limit, whether you call that like a credit limit, spending limit, or just a replenishment of energy in a timely basis for the energy that you're spending, then you're basically going to be burnt out. And whether it's corporate America, whether that's studying for my engineering degree, whether it's achieving something that I really want to, that just takes time, rigor, maybe following other people's schedule. So it's pretty much like out of my hands. But if I'm being a broker, then you're kind of on the hamster wheel until you get that next deal, close it, and they keep on going and going and going. And if you just hear what I'm saying, it basically is a recipe for burnout if you're not able to manage your not just energy levels, but whether that's stress or anxiety that comes along with it, which pretty much multiplies or compounds the whole effect of you spending energy. Because if you think about it, think about one of the happiest days of your life or the time you've been most energetic. Are you thinking twice about spending said energy? Probably not. Right? And me neither. You're happy to spend it. You're like in the moment. You're in the present. You're not thinking about, where you were. Let's say if the beach is your happy place, where you were before it, or when the time's going to end. You're basically going to just be happy in the moment. And that's really the key here. The key to not being burnt out is as if you're not actually spending said energy, even if you are, right? So even if you are, if you're doing something that doesn't basically feel like, oh, this is going to burn me out, then chances are you're probably not going to get burnt out. Now, of course, if there's a will, there's a way. And if your why is strong enough, someone like myself as well has pushed themselves way, way, way far. Even though I love it, I enjoy it, I'm happy to. Internally, it's like I'm burnt out, but in my emotion, I feel happy. And if you've ever felt like that, that's not a bad sign. That means you're basically doing what you want, but now it's in your own hands to push yourself that much further or say, hey, do I want to take a step back? And usually in today's time, people get burnt out. Why? It's because they're doing something that they basically don't want to do, but maybe you just have to keep on going, but you also don't see a way out. So how do you actually just deal with this situation? And I think the headline here is every shot not taken is a shot missed. And at the same regard, if you literally just stop, you won't get further, right? Like if you literally don't move, you're not going to move forward. And so the point of being burnt out or how to navigate it is when you're burnt out, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and the mountain is on top of you. And what does that really mean? That means basically you're probably going to quit. You're probably going to stop. You're probably going to be in a situation where like, all right, well, I'm putting in the towel and might as well surrender and start a new venture or new, iteration of whatever. But if you don't have a proper plan, then you're just going to put more effort into said thing and you'll be burnt out once more. So how do you solve this kind of never-ending feeling situation? So the answer I've basically found is it's a balance between consumption versus creation. And what that means is when I'm creating a lot, it's almost a burnout type of feeling if I just need to keep on creating. So for example, if in my job, let's say I'm creating something, let's say websites and apps, for example, and if I'm making these YouTube videos, then I'm also creating, right? So when you think about consumption, on the other hand, apart from just the illicit stuff of just like drinking and doing all these things, which are more a different kind of vertical, making you kind of vegetative state, not really giving you energy, but kind of, taking you away from where you are, but you're not really getting results. So the inverse of that basically is, okay, well, there's consumption in terms of maybe healthy consumption, like you're traveling or you're going to go watch a movie that hopefully is informative or maybe just a break, right? To consume, to have that balance between consumption versus creation. Because when you think about creation, what is it? It's basically the inputs of what you consume, and then you basically, your beautiful mind, just kind of, jumbling it up and then giving out something that you're creating basically for someone else to consume, yourself to consume, what have us. So if you are at a job that you hate, right, are you creating enough? In other words, are you feeling fulfilled by some type of productivity or some type of, output that you're proud of? Or are you consuming at work where maybe just an example, there was a job that I almost got, into, where I would need to consume basically a platform, like a streaming platform, which today it's normalized. But before, in the beginning days, before there was any streaming platform whatsoever, I was basically tasked with basically watching the ads, let's say, or would have been rather watching the ads, making sure they work as expected. So when you're watching some type of show or movie that you do or don't want to watch, you're actually waiting for the ads. So, of all the things where in today's world and a lot of people who hate ads, can you imagine what a job that would be? And sure, you can turn yourself off like mentally and just kind of go with the flow and know you're getting paid, and that's great, right? But the reality is what? The reality is, if you ask yourself, what value are you providing to the marketplace? Of course, from a capitalistic perspective, you are providing that which is necessary for that company's, profit margin and otherwise, making sure these things are running as expected. But apart from that very specific example, if you're in a situation where you don't like what you're doing, then you're spending more energy or energy in general just to do something you don't want to, which is like a drag. There's friction, there's resistance, there's all these things which are on top of everything, which is why they say, hey, if you're really trying to make progress and move forward, then what do you have to do? What you probably need to do realistically is either turn off the emotion, right? And it's just like math, right? If you're just doing your practice kind of drills when you're younger, like 6 times 7 is 42, 6 times 9 is 54, etc., right? 7 times 9 is 63, like this. And that's basically just, the path and the actions need to be taken. Screw the emotion, just go forward, right? That's one way to navigate burnout, you could say. But is it really solving the issue? You're kind of suppressing your emotion the whole dang time. So, what is the next step for something that's true and resolute? I would say, if you're really forced into something, if your why is strong enough, then no matter how much you're burnt out, your why is going to supersede that energy type of feeling. So what that means in English is, if you really want to be like Elon Musk and go to space, even if he's sleeping on the factory floor from one company to use that capital for a second thing, and then a third company to have enough, let's say, fame or influence to then say, hey, I want to be able to do this, and I want, that buy-in from folks that have that equivalent power to give him that space, no pun intended, right, to do the thing and then eventually go to space. The point here is that why supersedes maybe feeling burnt out. But if you ask someone, hey, go to space, figure it out, and come back to me, and when you have an answer, I will pay you 175 grand. Just an example. That 175, let's say it's contingent on someone figuring it out. That 175K may mean a lot to someone, may mean jack squat to another. And if you jack it up to 1.75 million or 5 million, right? If that number is enough for somebody, they'll try to figure it out no matter which way or what have us. Or they may use some of that to give it to the next person to then they figure out, hey, here's 2.5 mil, and then they have to make it happen, and they only get paid if they figure out the solution. Then you basically are taking a cut on top, and that's great, right? That's not really burnout. That's just doing something you don't want to do, but delegating it because there's enough margin for you to have some and someone else have some, right? This is like a typical, so many models like this, whether you call it consulting, agency, what have us. So in the end, burnout is what? Is it in our hands? Sure. The first few times when we fall into it, it's easy to fall into it. You don't even know what's happening, what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And before you know it, you're burnt out. You're like, how did I get here? Right? And you just kind of zoom out. And the answer is simple. If your why is strong enough, burnout's not really in the cards. So in other words, if you're not doing something that's in line with what you want to do, in line with your ethics, your morals, your etc., right? For me, I didn't pause while I'm here doing something with my forehead, because the message here I want to give you is, if you are burnt out now, take a step back. That thing that you're focusing on, it's going to keep on going. But if you can't because you're burnt out, then what happens? You'll sizzle into those ashes and you're basically no more. And that's both figuratively and otherwise. But coming up from the ashes, from zero to hero versus where you are right now, it's probably easier to just take a step back, re-baseline, and figure out how to go even higher. Because when you go all the way down to rock bottom, like, that's great, you'll have a realization, but the only way when I'm at rock bottom is up. And I also agree with that sentiment. But why get there in the first place? And as the years have been going on in my life, I can tell you confidently, the energy to go back from zero to upwards each and every time, that resilience is there, right? In my mind. But physically too, you have to be resilient, and that gets harder each and every iteration. So the reason for this video is everything I've said thus far, and also with the huge asterisks of, hey, hopefully you don't need this video ever again, because the answer is, don't even end up in this situation or position ever again. And how to avoid it is just be very, very mindful of what you're consuming, what you're creating, what that balance looks like, and you'll definitely achieve whatever you're looking for. But without looking at kind of the framework of what the inputs are for the output, you're going to set yourself up for failure, potentially, once again. So with that, thanks for coming to here, and hopefully this helped. Comment down below. Love to talk with you. Check out the link in the description below. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.